My name is Pasha Daniel Dugela. I was born in Glasgow and I've been an Ahmadiyya Muslim now for 8 years. My faith beforehand, I was brought up in the Catholic Church, not so strictly by my family, who weren't completely practicing Catholics, but that was the faith before. The part that spirituality played, I mean, we've always believed in God, and I think maybe the fact that the family stopped attending the Catholic Church over a period of time was due to the fact that actually we only believed in the one God, and there's a slightly different concept which comes from the Catholic Church, you see. Wow, how I became an Ahmadi. Well, it may surprise people to learn that in Glasgow there is actually at the time, I'd say maybe around about 1990, there was a group of young musicians who used to meet up regularly in Glasgow for various functions and things like that. And Islam books speaks about speeches on topics of spirituality used to come up all the time from different people in India, gurus and all this type of thing, and Buddhism and all these other types of religions. And Islam came through, and the type of Islam that actually came through to begin with was the 5% Nation of Islam, because some of the boys over there were actually of African origin in Glasgow. So they started showing books of Malcolm X and all the different things, and Islam suddenly took with I'd say around 20-30 a kind of core of people over in Glasgow, young men, even boys at that age, because we were 16, 17, 18 at the oldest. So over time the interest used to come and go and wane and get stronger, and eventually I got a hold of a book, The Mystics of Islam, by one Sufi scholar, and I thought, this is too deep for me, I can't read this, even though I knew there was something about Islam which was quite enticing and seemed very, very real. I was actually beginning at the end levels instead of learning the basics, but at that time I didn't know how to learn the basics or where to go to learn the basics. So after a few years again, a few more visits to places in Europe and stuff like that, I came back to Glasgow and visited the Central Mosque in Glasgow, and the reception there wasn't the greatest. There was a lot of kind of suspicion. What are these young white boys, the Glasgow boys, doing here all of a sudden with no invitation, no anything? But somehow from that day, something about Islam stuck with me, even though whether it was the the kind of awe-inspiring thing of the mosque, the kind of grand mosque in Glasgow, or who knows. But anyway, it stuck with me, and again, after a while, the interest kind of faded away again. It wasn't until my good friend, one of Boy Sabah Salam, he actually, ourselves, we began to talk about Islam and life a lot more, what the meaning of life was, where it was all going, things like that. And he actually told me that he had met one Dr. Muzaffar Ahmed, who's now based in Scunthorpe Jamaat, and he said, now you have to come and you have to listen to what this man has to say about Islam. So the night before I was due to go there, he met up with me, Sabah that is, and he gave me one book, Review of Religions, and on the front cover was the picture of Promised Messiah, and all he said to me was, here is a book, please read this chapter, and before you do, I should let you know that this is the second coming of Jesus. Now to me, it cleared up everything immediately. There was no need actually to read the chapter. One of the things I realised at that time was this is one of the things that's possibly held me back from becoming Muslim earlier, was the story about Jesus, because in Christianity and Catholicism especially, there are very strange kind of things attributed towards the story of Christ. And when I went to develop my kind of understanding of Islam, I found that they were no clearer with the Orthodox Muslims. So when it was explained to me that Jesus had died a natural death, and this was actually the second coming of Jesus, not in person but a spiritual resemblance, the same office of Jesus, straight away I knew this man is Messiah and Mahdi. There was no need, nothing could have dragged me away from that belief. So I went to sleep that night, woke up the next morning, met up with Sabah, and we went to the mosque. But what Sabah had forgot to tell me, or he left out, was that actually 6 days before he himself had become Ahmadi Muslim. But he never told me this at the time. So I met with Dr. Muzaffar Ahmed over there, and literally within minutes, you could say seconds, of entering the mosque in Glasgow, Beit Rahman Mosque in Glasgow, my heart, my mind, everything was Ahmadi. No need for any discussion. Although we had plentiful discussion and maybe we sat there for 4 hours that day. But within the first 10 minutes, I was Ahmadi. When he placed the bite form at the end of the discussion and said, please read over, I read over. And there was no way my heart and my mind could let me leave the building without becoming Ahmadi Muslim on that very second. Alhamdulillah, family and friends were absolutely fine. The reason possibly is because they knew this was coming, you see. They had obviously, being younger, your mum is in cleaning up your room and all this type of thing, and she used to find these books about Islam and these papers on Islam and Islam this and Islam that. And I used to try and discuss with her in my own very limited knowledge and maybe some kind of fashion about Islam. But the biggest thing you could say is that when I went to the mosque that day, my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, she met me after that in the evening, and she said, okay, how did you get on today at the mosque? And I said, well, I have become a Muslim. And her first words were, oh my God. And I said exactly, oh my God. So that was the most adverse reaction. There was nothing. But to make you understand, or to make everyone else understand, alhamdulillah, my wife became an Ahmadi almost, I think only 2.5, 3 months after that. She saw the change. I explained the beliefs very, very simply and very nicely, and presented Ahmadiyyat the way Ahmadiyyat should be presented. And she had absolutely no trouble at all in becoming Ahmadi herself. And alhamdulillah, again, her family, my family, have had no bad reaction at all. If anything, they have only been positive, and they themselves, I think, deep in their heart, they know that the Ahmadiyyat is ultimately the truth. How have I benefited? It may sound kind of like a cliche for people, but to understand, those who have been Ahmadi their whole life, for ourselves, for myself, it's almost, I became an Ahmadi when I was 24, 25 years old, and even though I thought life was good and it was fun and all this and all that, at the moment of becoming Ahmadi, you can see that you are living your life with the lights switched off. And definitely when you become an Ahmadi, there are so many graces of Allah which fall on you without any effort on yourself, that undescribable, very peculiar things to the individual, I'm sure, but how I've benefited is almost impossible to put into words. The things that Allah has bestowed upon myself and my family, we think if we had continued living the way before, it wouldn't have happened. Physically, spiritually, materially, everything, alhamdulillah, God has blessed us with so much in abundance. So that is, I mean, to go into practical detail would take forever, but that is the gist of how it's benefited us. The most convincing thing, I think, going back to if I have to go back and look at the root of the thing and how the thing that grabbed me, when I saw the picture of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, I knew straight away that this is a godly man. You can maybe show some people the photograph and they won't see that thing, but I was lucky, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, that I saw that thing in Hazrat Masih Maud's picture, and I just knew from that very moment, that was the very, very first thing. That was the very first thing, so for me it becomes the most important thing. Seeing the picture of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, I knew straight away that this man is from Allah. What gives me happiness is just our family life at the moment. I mean, inshallah, we're trying to bring up the family in the most Islamic manner we can. Alhamdulillah, we have 2 young sons who are both waqf now, and that, you know, being able to actually, I suppose it's a very big deal maybe for some, you know, white people from Glasgow, that actually we have now born Muslims in our family. For Allah to grant us the status in our family that we actually have some born Muslims in our family is very, it's a very nice feeling. And obviously when you see these functions like Ijtima and Jalsa Salana on the other side as well, it's very hard to break up the Ahmadiyya into different, you know, pigeonholes and say, okay, this thing is here, this thing is there. Ahmadiyya as a whole is very, very pleasing and gives huge benefit.